Sure.
So thank you. I appreciate it, Father G. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. Would it be okay before I moved into the questions if I just shared your bio very quickly
Yes.
for our students? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So to our students, thank you for joining. We are very lucky to have Father Greg Boyle, founder of Homeboy Industries, with us today. Father Greg Boyle is a native Angelino and Jesuit priest, and from 1986 to 1992, he served as a pastor of Dolores Mission Church in Boyle Heights, which was the poorest Catholic church in Los Angeles that also had the highest concentration of gang activity. And in a response to that, Father Greg and his parish community members adopted what was considered a radical model or approach at that time to treat gang members like human beings. In 1988, they started what would eventually become Homeboy Industries, which employs and trains former gang members in a range of social enterprises, as well as provides critical services to thousands of men and women who walk through the doors every year to seek a better life. Father Greg has received the California Peace Prize, has been inducted into the Hall of Fame. In 2014, President Obama named Father Greg Boyle a champion of change, and he received the University of Notre Dame's 2017 Lighter Medal, the oldest honor given to American Catholics. And currently, he serves as a committee member of California Governor Gavin Newsom's Economic and Job Recovery Task Force as a response to COVID-19. He also has a new book coming out, and I believe it drops on November 5th, Election Day of all days. Cherished Belonging. There it is. And I already have it on pre-order, so I'm looking forward to reading that as well. And I've already read all of your books actually multiple times. So, Father Greg, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you.
It,
Um,
it's my honor. Fire away.
All right, thank you very much. So my first question, I was hoping you could provide us with some insight of Homeboy Industries. Shared in your bio a little bit around the origin of Homeboy Industries. What would you say in your mind is the marrow or the mission of Homeboy Industries?
Yeah. So it was started really like kind of 40 years ago when I was walking in the projects. And so there was that was during a time of great tough on crime, impetus, and law enforcement was really had embraced that approach. And so my parish had the highest concentration of gang activity in the world.
Mm,
And I was burying kids starting in 1988, and I've buried 261 altogether.
mm,
And so it became clear that, we, it wasn't very effective to just shake our fist at gang violence. That
mm,
gang violence was about something else. So we wanted to address the something else. So
mm,
we get underneath it and discover it's about a lethal absence of hope. So direct, address the despair and watch what happens to the violence. It decreases, it disappears. And so that's kind of the hope, is that the homies always talk about finding the thorn underneath,
mm,
and then address that.
mm,
And so, but in the past, it was kind of like a lung cancer patient. We didn't address the lung cancer. We just tried to calm the cough.
mm,
And then we were surprised when we discovered that, the patient died
mm,
because we hadn't fully addressed what the thing was about.
mm,
Now, we've been around for 36 years as an organization. So we have 13 social enterprises, 10,000 people a year walk through our doors. And all of them are most of them are trying to be a part of the 18-month program, but they're all trying to get a dose of a community of cherished belonging where people feel connected to each other. So,
Yes, I appreciate that. Now, to my students, my doctoral students, Father Greg just shared the first three stages of the SESI model. Father Greg, when we start with the SESI model, one of the things, and our SESI model is really rooted on the foundation of Nehemiah, and Nehemiah, building the wall. And the first question we challenge our students to consider in the model is what breaks your heart? And to take time to really observe the root cause of the issue. And so you really touched on that, I think, really powerfully and beautifully, that there was pain going on in the community as a result of the gang violence, but you sought to look deeper into what was going on systemically, and not just address the symptoms, but the root issue, the cause of that. Um, I think there's something really courageous about what you and your parish did, when venturing into this place of what you described as treating homeboys as people. I imagine that during that time and even today, that may not always be a popular position, if you will, to take. I was wondering what types of challenges you may have encountered when you first started expressing this desire to move in a direction of seeing homeboys as people. I was wondering what challenges you experienced and what was that like in as you encountered those barriers and continuing with this mission.
Yeah, well, I always talk about the first 10 years. Well,
Mm,
88 to 98 was the decade of death. That's when violence was the most alarming. And so reaching the highest moment in 92 when we had 1,000 gang-related homicides in Los Angeles. But those first 10 years were marked by death threats, bomb threats, and hate mail. So there was so much animosity and hostility towards Homeboy because we were kind of seen as fraternizing with the enemy.
mm,
And so if the general population and law enforcement in particular demonized the gang member, then it was a short hop to demonize me for helping them.
yes.
Then in October of 99, Homeboy Bakery, which was our first venture, it burned to the ground,
Oh, yes,
all
yes.
natural causes.
Right.
But it was at that moment, an absolute turning point where the LA Times wrote an editorial and said, this Homeboy Industries doesn't belong to Father Greg Boyle. It belongs to the city of
Mm,
Los Angeles.
wow.
So that's why we're in this headquarters where we're in now, where we're able to buy property and build this place, have the cafe, have the bakery, and have a place where 10,000 folks a year can walk through our doors. But
Wow.
it just turned on a dime
Mm,
where the whole county said, yeah, I know we tried to be tough on crime, but then once people were offered smart on crime, they embraced smart
yes.
and they
Yeah.
abandoned tough. So in the past, they used to think the choice was tough or soft.
Mm,
And if you think that's the choice, no one will pick soft.
mm,
But if you think the choice is tough and smart, everyone will pick smart. And that's what happened. So it's hard to even retrieve a time when we had death threats, bomb threats, and hate mail because it was long ago.
mm.
And we haven't had it. We haven't had it since then.
Wow. Father Boyle, I appreciate you sharing that because one of the there was many themes that resonated with me across the books that you've written to this point, but one of them was around this sense of creating this radical sense of belonging, and you noted even here it was when Los Angeles said Homeboy Industries is ours. Like I can even hear those words of belonging of Homeboy belongs here in Los Angeles. You belong with us, and therefore it almost created this ripple effect of therefore everyone Homeboy serves belongs with us as well. I mean, what does belonging look like? This radical sense of belonging look like at Homeboy Industries? How do the people that walk through your doors experience this sense of belonging?
Well, something that people will always say about gangs, even if they don't know very much, they'd say, well, a kid joins a gang for a sense of belonging.
Hmm.
But I have a friend, Padre Otauma, who's worked in during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and he used to say of the Troubles, it was really belonging gone wrong,
Hmm.
and that's what gang membership is. It's belonging gone wrong, and so if they come here, it's belonging gone right.
Okay.
It's you have enemies, you have black, you have brown, you have gay, you have straight, you have everybody works with multiple people they used to shoot at.
Hmm.
And now it's belonging gone right, where everybody supplies a dose to each other of kindness. And the principle is really cherishing love. So cherishing is love with its sleeves rolled up.
Hmm.
If you settle for love, it's just kind of it can be in the hair, in the air or in your head, or it might wander to your heart, but cherishing love is what finds its way to your feet. Where do you stand? With whom do you stand?
I
How
love
do
that.
you stand there?
I
And
love
so cherishing, so you try to create a community of cherished belonging, which is a community of kinship such that God, in fact, might recognize it. And it's where there is no us and them, there's just us. So there's no oppositional stance. There's no we stand against people, you
I
know.
love.
You're wanting to announce a message to the world.
Mm,
And there, so Homeboy does what it does, but it also wants to be the front porch of the house everyone wants to live in.
mm.
And so the great John Lewis used to say, we all live in the same house.
Yes, yes,
And it wasn't aspirational. He never said one day we all may live in the same house. It was a declarative sentence. We all live in the same house. And
yes.
there wasn't distinction. Somebody live in the basement, somebody lives in the attic. No, same
Right.
house.
Love
So
that.
you assert that, and then you demonstrate what it might look like. You know, the household of God is a line you know, from scripture where it imagines a place where you know, it imagines a circle of compassion, and then it imagines nobody standing outside that circle. So to that end, we're all seeking to dismantle the barriers that exclude, which is God's dream come true, that you may be one, as Jesus says before he departs.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. I appreciate that. And it made me kind of think too how important that message is in terms of the, the release of your next book. I also happen to notice that the book is being released on November 5th on election day. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but the message is so necessary right now.
But that's only because the author was slow dragging and finishing the book. It was supposed to have been October 5th,
Okay, gotcha.
you know, before the election, but oh
Yeah.
well.
Well, okay, thank you. There's a stage in our SESI model, and it's towards the end of the model where we discuss this notion of evaluation. And what we ask our students to do is really prepare to be able to answer or wrestle with the question of what defines success for their activism, whatever that may look like, for their marginalized population. So some of our students are going out and they're serving specific populations within their practice. Some of that might be addressing the needs of the unhoused or individuals struggling with sometimes mental illnesses or substance dependency. But I was curious for you at Homeboy Industries, how do you define success at Homeboy?
Yeah, we're kind of allergic to it in a
Yeah.
way, you know, because once you settle for success, then it's about success and failure. And I know funders will say evidence-based
Hmm.
outcomes,
Right.
but then there's the temptation to work with people who will only give you better outcomes.
Mm,
And that's kind of, we're allergic to that notion. We want to walk with people who are right in front of us. And then, so then the measure becomes love. We're just going to, you know, find our true selves in loving, and we're going to love being loving.
mm,
And love never fails, as Paul writes. And so, you know, love is never a false doctrine, and love never stops loving. So, and then you discover that loving is your home. And once you know that, you're never homesick. So that's the focus.
mm,
Now, that will work because that will help. So everything that helps works.
mm.
Not everything that works helps, but everything
Yes.
that helps works. And so you want to do the thing that's helpful. What's the next loving thing that I can do? You put one foot in front of each loving foot,
Mm,
and that's all you can do. And I have confidence that if everybody's doing that and rowing in the same direction, then it works. So you don't go to the margins to make a difference. You
mhm.
know, you go to the margins so that the folks at the margins make you different.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you allow your heart to be altered by people whose burdens are more than they can bear. And you receive these people whose dignity has been denied. And so it's exquisitely mutual. It's not about service provider, service recipient.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's mutual, and because it's mutual, it's eternally replenishing. It's never depleting. But
Mhm.
if you go to the margins to make a difference, then it's about you,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
can't be. But
Yeah.
if you go to the margins so that these folks will make you different, then it's about us, which is God's dream come true.
Mm.
And so I'm not a big self-care kind of person, because I think if you're loving and you're delighting in people, that is replenishing for an eternity.
Mm.
But if it's about success or measuring or evidence-based outcomes, brace yourselves, because you're going to burn out,
Mm.
because you've allowed it to become about you, and
Yes.
you insist that it be about success.
Yeah.
Success will come.
Mhm.
Success will be a byproduct of our love.
Mm. I
But if
appreciate that.
that's your goal, then I think you end up, getting stuck in a lot of places where you don't want to be.
That's such a critical perspective, and I'm so grateful for you sharing that, because oftentimes our students, even ourselves in the field of academia and higher education, it's very much this outcome driven mindset that is impressed sometimes upon the practitioner, the scholar, the deliverer, even the recipient. Sometimes we have recipients come in and they want to hear, what is your success rate, right? Like, define success for me. And you're leading with love and what helps, and so I love the perspective there so much.
I
um
think people, you will have data collection, and people will
right.
kind of, that's not my concern, nor is that my engine that drives anything. I
Yes.
suppose as an organization, you need to do it,
Hmm.
because people will want to
Right.
know how many people and how and what happened, and the metrics.
Right.
So somebody does it. I just don't think it's not a primary concern. Otherwise, you'll burn out.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. um Father G, I only have two more questions for you, but one in particular.
Sure.
Our students, over at CBU, we integrate faith. We even wrestle with that word integration, right? But faith is a foundational aspect of what we do and how we deliver the content. And you've spoken. I mean, it's maybe not necessarily faith's integrated. I almost see it as formational work that you're doing, at Homeboy Industries. It's to the individuals that walk in your doors. But I was wondering, I don't know, but all the homeboys that come through your doors, they may not all come from a faith background, right? Or maybe they're not, necessarily hadn't been raised in with a Christian lens or anything like that. I was just wondering, like, how do your homeboys experience the faith that comes through? I mean, I know you described this love that you're imparting and inviting people into the circle of compassion, but do homeboys come in and then and suddenly find Christ through this love that you are extending and I almost want to say immersing them in? Sorry, I may have lost you there. Yeah.
Yeah. You were kind of going in and out there, but I
Oh,
got the
sorry.
gist of the
Yeah.
question. I think part of the thing is that it's what we do here is the marrow of the gospel, as Saint Francis of Assisi talks about it.
Mm.
So it's one of those, preach the gospel always, use words only when necessary. So that's kind of how we live here.
Mm. Mm.
So we want people to see the love, and then they recognize that people are choosing to be in the world who God is,
Mm.
compassionate and loving and kind. And at the same time, you're seeing that folks here are trying to take seriously what Jesus took seriously:
Yes.
inclusion, nonviolent,
Yes.
unconditional loving kindness, and compassionate acceptance.
Mm.
People see it.
Mhm.
But we don't yak about it.
Yes.
We want to live as though the truth were true, and we want to put first things recognizably first, which is the marrow of the gospel.
Yeah.
So
I,
it's not about words, and it connects to the early Christian community that was not about a set of beliefs,
yes.
but it was a movement of love. We much rather connect ourselves to that rather than thinking that somehow you have to, how many people did you save today? We don't, obviously, we don't talk that way because our spacious, expansive God is not all that interested in that kind of thing.
Mm. Thank you for that. That movement of love really speaks to my heart. It reminded me of at least I had heard it was a quote from Gandhi at one time where he had said, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. He had said, your Christians are so unlike your Christ. And, I think he was really trying to emphasize this movement of love, like, let me see your faith and your belief in the gospel, in your actions.
But
It was,
also, Gandhi committed himself to become a disciple of Christ
mhm.
and never stopped being a Hindu, which I
Yes,
think is a remarkable testament to the marrow of the gospel. He knew how to
yes,
live. He knew how to live as though the truth were true, and he never abandoned his own
mhm.
faith.
Yeah,
He just took seriously what Jesus did. And what could you hope for more
right,
than that?
right.
Yeah.
That's so true. Okay. Um, Beautiful. Father Greg, I just have one more question for you as I'm looking at our time here today. So I was wondering, from your perspective, and you have so much experience in leading in these areas, and the work that you've done has truly been impactful and innovative. I'm going to share later with the class how your relationship with my father improved the relationship secondary with me, between me and my father, in the healing that you did between him and his brother. And so it's something that this ripple effect continued even in my own life. But I wanted to share or ask you, what kind of advice would you give to these doctoral students who are really, in this preparatory stage? They have these hearts to go out and want to serve those in need, and we're trying to put individuals in front of them to do that in a way, like you said, that emulates love and the gospel. What advice would you have for these future innovators, and coming out of our program?
Yeah, I think I look at your program and it reminds me of what Martin Luther King said about church. It's not the place you come to, it's the place you go from.
Mm,
And so your students have to envision your program as this launching pad. It's
mm.
the place to go from always.
Yes,
It
yes,
never was meant to be the place you come to. It was always meant to be the place you go from. And you go from there, to kind of announce a message, not with your words, but with your actual lives.
mm,
And then you stand at the margins because that's the only way they will get erased. And it's all about where you stand with the cherishing love,
mm.
because systems change when people change, and
Right.
people change when they are cherished.
Yes.
So it's a palpable, you know, profound, intention to cherish people, because like here at Homeboy Industries, and the room is just packed out there, with people.
Yes.
They're and they've all been to prison, and they'll say, we're used to being watched, but we're not used to being seen. And so
Mm,
the more you can create a community, because the
yes.
answer is everybody's saved by relationships,
Yes.
and you create a community where people give doses and cherish each other, and create a place where people feel safe, seen, and then cherished. And then they will leave your presence in the community that you've created, and the world will throw at them what it will, but this time they won't be toppled by it. And so it's community forming people to become sturdy and resilient in knowing the truth of who they are, and
Mm,
in discovering their true selves and loving. And then they love being loving, and 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 the world is screaming, longing for people to, inhabit that.
mm. Thank you, Father Greg. I really appreciate it. Thank you again so much for your time. I know you've got a room out there full of folks waiting for you, and I
Yeah.
just sincerely would like to thank you on behalf of me and my students in our program for your time today. I know that they'll find this beneficial and a blessing. So thank you for that.
Always, I'm happy to help you. So holler.
Okay, I will. Thank you. You
Okay.
have a wonderful day. Okay.
Give my love to your folks.
I will. I will. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.